Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Over the last few months, UVM Extension 4-H kicked off a new series of virtual programs called 4-H at Home. In a few minutes, we'll have information about how your children or grandchildren can take part in these activities. First, let's meet some young women who built their dream farm this summer. Vermont 4-H educator Rose Garitano taught the workshop and told us how soil science, a certain emoji, and best management practices created a dreamy design opportunity.
Well, we've been doing a lot of virtual programming right now because we haven't been able to meet face-to-face, and soil conservation is an area that interests me, as is farming. I've done a similar activity with young children at something we call Winter Horse Camp, where they could design their dream farm. So I reworked it a little bit and made this fairly academic program where the idea was to design a farm, but to also take in soil conservation practices into account and best management practices for running a farm.
Bree Suloff took conservation practices into her design, like adding a strip of vegetation near the stream, commonly known as riparian buffer.
We learned that there has to be a riparian buffer around the pond and the stream so that nothing falls into the water and pollutes it.
Some of the subjects in this program were actually fairly advanced.
Yeah, they were really designed for middle school and up, but that doesn't mean that a younger audience wouldn't have some takeaways. And the participants that really showed up most often were on the younger side, and they were engaged, and so they learned some things that they can take with them because they're dreaming of having a farm someday. And so hopefully they'll have a little bit of a foundation and some understanding of how to be stewards of the land.
Hannah Collier included features that are environmentally friendly, as well as spaces for the animals in her farm.
My personal dream farm, well, it has a lot of stuff, like a riparian buffer, sacrifice paddocks, a house, a barn, pastures, and pretty much the normal things that you will see on a farm.
Well, 4-H is UVM Extension's positive youth development program, and we have set up a section on our webpage that's called 4-H at Home, and so that is advertised there on the website, and it was put out on Facebook and through various channels. So we had some participants sign up from all over the United States, really, mostly local. We have kids see these virtual opportunities and sign up then online, and we use a platform like Zoom to present the programming, and so there's some interaction that takes place, and we try to make it as interactive as possible so that it's not just an information dump.
We did a money game that we played so that we learned how to make money.
We had a manure management game, Manure Mania, and I got that idea from another extension program where I had an overlay of a grid on a farm that I used to own, and we moved around poop emojis to show whether a spot was suitable for a manure pile or not, or for spreading manure relative to where property lines were, borders were, the topography of the land, waterways. And so that was a way to learn about that concept, put some thought into where you put those nutrients.
The black dot is the manure pile. I moved it away from the barn because in the stream and the pastures, because like you don't want it too close to the animals and you don't want it too close to the stream. And plus you don't want it too close to your house in the barn.
There were also some activities that the participants could do at home to do some home soil tests, which included things as simple as digging a hole and just looking at the layers of soil, looking at the horizons. A few of the participants did a jar test where you put soil in a jar with water and shake it up, and then the layers settle out, and so you can see what the components are in your soils.
We had soil tests. We had to see if there was like a lot of clay in the soil or not like that much clay in the soil.
I used regular ground soil. I learned about that it was like sandy-ish, rocky, and a little bit of loamy. And then there was a slight layer of clay.
The girls, the families that stuck with it were really pleased with the program. I was pleased because I got positive feedback. I think it's exciting to learn about soils and farming, but it was nice that the families gave me some feedback and said that their girls were really engaged and excited about designing their farms.
You can see that there are little terraces cut into the hill so that you can plant crops in and there aren't like tipping over. And I have little bridges going over the stream. My mom and dad have a little cottage.
So that's where you're going to stay?
That's where my mom and dad are going to stay, and then I have a huge house.
Now, Hannah, do you think you want to be a farmer when you grow up?
Well, I do want to be a farmer, and I also want to be a veterinarian to help the animals at the same time.
For these and many other 4-Hers, the dream of becoming a farmer is starting to take shape, thanks to 4-H at Home. In South Hero, I'm Marco Ayala for Across the Fence.
4-H at Home is open to children in grades K through 12. And you don't need to be enrolled in 4-H to take part in these activities. Younger kids can join the Clover Buds Connect Challenge, happening each and every Friday, while middle and high school students can meet a science at the popular virtual teen Science Cafe on Wednesdays from 3:30 to 4:45. All 4-H at Home events are free, but registration is required. Willinghand is a nonprofit organization that serves the needs of the hungry in the Upper Valley region. Last year, they distributed approximately 266 tons of food to their neighbors in need. Across the Fence visited the Willinghand's garden in East Thetford a couple of years ago and filed this report.
I'm actually going to have you put them in black crates as well. The cabbage, just because it will last longer.
If many hands make light work, then there's good news here at Willinghand's garden in East Bedford.
Historically, the Willinghand's garden has produced about 6 to 8 tons of food a year. This past year was 16,000 pounds or 8 tons. And we actually doubled the garden this year.
Gabe Zorhide is the executive director of Willinghand's. It's a nonprofit based in the Upper Valley that works to reduce food waste and hunger and improve access to healthy food for low-income residents of the area. The organization runs this garden with the help of many willing volunteers.
Willinghand's garden is a partnership between Willinghand's and Cedar Circle Farm. Cedar Circle has a 3-day-a-week staff person who helps us with the garden. Otherwise, the garden is really run by 100% volunteer effort. So we have garden leaders who come out and lead teams of volunteers 2 or 3 days a week to grow the crops, from putting them in the soil, cultivating, weeding, everything, and harvesting.
This isn't just a little garden.
It's not just a little garden, and it's a lot of work. I don't think I put 2 hours at a time in my own garden anymore. But you know, you get talking and you're picking or you're planting or you're weeding, and the time does go by and you're forming friendships, bonds.
Here's the most beautiful large leaf.
Patty Sarah first heard about Willinghand's when she was going through the University of Vermont Extension's Master Gardener course.
at the end of the program, of the Master Gardener program, they always have speakers come from different groups that are wanting some volunteer work. And this, I don't know, seemed like it fit. I love to cook. The idea of growing organic food for people, that's right up my alley.
Over the years, a number of Master Gardeners have volunteered at the garden.
One of our volunteer leaders is going through the Master Gardener program, and her mentor is also one of our longtime volunteers who got involved through the Master Gardener program. She's actually going to be working on a hoop house, which is be our first sort of season extension project within the Willinghand's garden, and that's going to be a Master Gardener's project. So we're really, we've had a long history of having involvement from the Master Gardeners program, and we're looking really at deepening that with specific projects that they can take the lead on.
Projects like the hoop house are important for Willinghands because the garden is the only food source they control. All of the food the organization distributes is either donated, gleaned from nearby farms, or grown right here.
After sort of a winter of getting the surplus from grocery stores, people love to see the fresh stuff.
Willinghand's operation manager, Jim Mccracken, started volunteering to fulfill his Master Gardener hours as well, before moving into his current position. He's in charge of making sure that the food that comes in gets where it needs to go. That's to food shelves, senior centers, and other local nonprofits that fight hunger. Helping to get fresh produce to people in his own community is one of the most rewarding parts of the job.
Well, fresh produce is probably one of the most expensive parts of a grocery bill, and so by getting this fresh produce, they have a healthier diet having access to it is the whole idea. So our mission is providing that and providing it weekly. The food bank does drops and things like that, but that's once a month. The good thing about Willinghands is that we're there, and they're going to know we're there every week of the year, so they can change their diet.
Growing, collecting, and delivering fresh food to their neighbors in need. These volunteers in East Thetford have a hand to lend. At the Willinghand's garden, I'm Rebecca Gullen with Across the Fence.
To learn how you can support the efforts of Willing Hands, visit the website willinghands.org. There you'll find information about how to get involved as a donor or volunteer. There's also information about how nonprofit organizations can sign up to receive food donations. You can also reach out to Willing Hands over the phone at 802-698-0265. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.